Today's postcard is franked the city of Cambridge in the county of Cambridgeshire. Well, across there is the Cambridgeshire County Council buildings. Now, obviously, that wasn't there when the city of Cambridge began.
It wasn't there when the Romans first arrived 40 years after the birth of Christ, that is for certain. No, it was not. Very recent addition to the city of Cambridge there.
And we're on Castle Mound, so presumably we're on this little heap of earth. There was a castle here.
That's precisely what there was. That's why it's called the Castle Mound. Yes, there was. The great castle was built by the Normans when they reached here in 1068. There were still Saxons out there fighting the Normans out in the fens right across to Ely, near Ely Cathedral, 15 miles away. They needed a castle here to defend themselves, the Normans that is, but more importantly it was from here that they sent out the Norman knights to finish off the last of the Saxon, well, they called it a rebellion. It was more of the Saxons didn't like what was happening to them, what was being done to them by the newcomers, the people from northern France.
So do we say then that Cambridge began with the Romans?
Yes, we do. What happened was this. The Romans arrived, as you know, as I said earlier, 40 years after the birth of Christ. They set up their headquarters about 60 miles away in the town we today call Colchester. They called it Camuloginum. The legions were marching north. In fact, the busy road there where all the traffic is was the old Roman road. They were marching north to give the rest of Britain a good hiding. They stopped here because they'd crossed our little river down there, and because of this unique piece of land here, a hill is 70 feet high around here, which is quite unusual in this part of England, which is totally flat. They were able to leave legionnaires here to defend the river crossing. Local tribesmen came to trade with the Romans. That's how our community started, nearly 2,000 years ago.
Why was it then that Cambridge became such a city of learning?
Well, you've got to go back a little before we did become a seat of learning, because the university actually started in 1209. But before that, we'd had, as I say, the Romans here for 400 years. Saxons came in from across the North Sea down to where the Romans had been in their boats. They were followed by the Vikings and eventually by the Normans in the 1000s, but it wasn't until 1209 that we really started to become what we are today, a great university. And in that year, 1209, the other great university, Oxford, was closed down for a year because the students there were fighting with the townspeople. The king said enough, closed it down, and a lot of their students came here. Why did they come here? Because there were a number of very well established religious houses here where there was a long tradition, even in the 1200s, of teaching and learning. A university waiting to be born, and what triggered the birth were those dreadful students in the other universities.
That's interesting. I didn't realise that. So if we then take it from that time of the founding of the university, what else has happened in Cambridge's history of note?
As far as the city is concerned, it's always really been, well, it was only a city, it became a city in the 60s. The town of Cambridge was always a very quiet, gentle market town with a great university on its edge. It's the university that's brought international acclaim and honour and fame to Cambridge. I mean, if you look behind us, there's that marvellous, the top of King's College Chapel there, immediately behind us. Over to your right over there is the huge university library. But what you've got to think, when those Normans came here in the late 1000s, how could they have imagined that this place, 1,000 years on, was going to be the place where the atom was first split, the place where the electron was first discovered, which led inevitably to our age of computerization, and where in the 1950s the genetic code was first unraveled, DNA was first unraveled, just down there in Cambridge.